When do I like myself best? What are the things I want to work on? When do I feel the most challenged? What do I like about how so and so showed up? I am totally different. I bring something different, but there's something that I like about what that person does. How can I incorporate that?
This is our Season 5, Episode 6 of our Norman Aid Make Today Well Live podcast. My name is Remy Abrishami. I'm Norman Aid's head peer counselor, a Bring Change to Mind club leader, and a senior. KJ Rose, this month is Norman Aid's Self-Acceptance Month. Your work is all about helping artists, executives, and creatives step into their power and confidence. What does self-acceptance mean to you? And how has it influenced your journey both personally and professionally?
I believe that self-acceptance is a decision one must make every single day. Growing up, I had a lot of confidence when it came to being in ensembles or speaking with large groups. However, when it came to being an orator or a solo artist, it really brought about a trepidation and a fear. And I know that self-acceptance is about truly taking your power back from things you've been silenced by. A lot of times there are agreements that you've made about yourself based on what other people have said, right? And you have subscribed to those. And then there also can be agreements on a narrative that you have subscribed to based on your own thinking. And so I have learned that in order to truly accept yourself, you have to continuously rechampion your story, resurrect your force, and reimagine you every day. If there's something that you want to shoot for, but you don't feel like you have the tools, your job is to go and research those tools, but you are capable. And if we're not stretching our capacity, then of course our level of self-acceptance will be almost silenced. And so I think you have to make the choice every day to say, I have the internal metric of what worthiness is. I make that decision on how I am valued, and then everybody else's thoughts on who I am, their opinions become secondary. They're the bonus if they're good, and if they're not, they don't matter.
Thank you so much for sharing, and I agree with you completely. I think that self-acceptance comes from within yourself and not what other people think of you. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I love what you shared. And secondly, you've had such an incredible journey as an artist, performer, and now as a global artist development and performance director. Mm-hmm. Can you please share about yourself and how you got into that field?
Yes. I started as a singer, as one that sang background for artists like Biggie and Heavy D and Britney Spears and Carl Thomas and Justin Timberlake. And that really helped to build my level of confidence and outrun this feeling of stage fright kind of every single day. Growing up, like I said, I was very much about having a level of like showmanship and performance, and I was very outgoing and in the way I told stories, and I just had a very curious mind, and I took that. And it's interesting because I would hear a lot of the times, why does it take all of that, or you're too much, and oftentimes it's because people did not get it, right? They didn't understand it. And at that time there would be moments where I would kind of back up a little bit, like maybe I am too much, until I realized that my too much just may mean you need to pull up, right? Maybe you have not accessed all of, your power, and so you don't recognize mine. And so once I realized that this was part of my assignment, I knew that I had to outrun this level of stage fright. So it became about repetition for me, right? Because oftentimes we will dismiss something if we don't feel like we're naturally born with it, right? And I said, but I want to sing. Even though I have this trepidation within me and my body would have this adverse reaction to performing, I would go into a studio every day and perform. I would watch myself. So then I could take my power back from what everyone else was thinking when they watched me. So imagine being on stage and spending the first 5 minutes wondering what people think, as opposed to really giving yourself a chance to be present. And so that became the work for me. And that led me to my first, I would say, opportunity with Britney Spears. And from there, I just kept building. And then I also had to figure out what my force was. That force is the thing about you that cannot be negotiated, right? Your self-acceptance cannot be hijacked, right? So it's the work that you do. And I realized that it was tenacity. It was an unmatchable energy. It was persistence. And that's how I got my job, my first background singing job with Britney Spears, because I called the man. I missed the audition, but I called him every single day, like routine, just checking in. Did you find what you were looking for? He'd be like, nope, we're still auditioning. Sometimes I would call and sing, but I knew that you may be able to, maybe your talent is just more vast and maybe you've spent more hours on the talent, but I knew you would not be able to outwork me. And I went with those things that I had harnessed. And that's my job, to help other people harness their potential. And sometimes they harness my energy until their own catches up. And so that is how I got started as a singer that loved to then take that information and pour into other people so that they did not have to reinvent the wheel. And I believe that my assignment is to enlighten people on process, so they don't think that you just landed in victory without the work that it takes, that you've landed in victory without the work that it takes.
I appreciate you sharing so much. Can you please tell me more about what it was like getting over your stage fright?
Yes.
Because I feel like some other people are so quick to just give up so easily. So yeah, I'd love to hear more about that.
Getting over my stage fright was first recognizing why it existed in the first place. And I had to define for myself what victory was, because a lot of times stage fright was about wondering what everybody else thought about what I was doing, if they thought I was good enough, if they thought the performance really spoke to them. And then I realized that my assignment in doing this is very specific to the things I was already born with and qualified to do. I know that, part of my force is also empathy. It's compassion. It's being able to have conversations through music. And I had to continuously build that within myself and then do the work, right? So I realized it was repetition. I had to go in the studio. I had to keep doing it so that I could visualize the winning moments. If you get out in front of an audience, if you get out on that stage, if you have a speaking engagement, and you have not put enough in the tank that you can recall a victory, then it feels like your very first time. And so I knew that those were the necessary steps to take in order to get on stage and kind of take my power back from what everybody else might be thinking. I remember doing a performance, and maybe for the first couple of minutes, I was just in my head. I was like, oh my God, what are they thinking? Oh, what do they think about what I have on? How was that note? And, I hate losing twice. The first loss is the thinking that you weren't good enough in that moment. The second loss is not being present in the moment, right? And so the same people that I was wondering if they liked what I was doing, the same people that looked like they were disinterested in my performance became the same people that congratulated me and said how much I moved them. And what it said to me was, it is not my responsibility in that moment to figure out how you're digesting, right? It's the work I do before I get to the stage, but I don't want to be a work in progress on stage. And so I realized that I can't control how people kind of digest my work. And if I am in the present moment and I have given everything that I can give based upon what I know at that moment and who I am at that moment, that is victory to me.
I really like what you said about how you can control what other people think of you, because two people that you admire so much could have completely different views on something.
Yes.
So I think that that's so significant. And so next up, you've worked with so many talented people in brands like Disney and Google and Britney Spears and LL Cool J. In your experience, what are some of the biggest challenges people have had to face when it comes to accepting themselves, especially in high pressure and like performance driven environments?
In my experience, I believe some of the things that people have contended with as it pertained to building their confidence has mostly been about waiting for others to give you and to give you. It's about waiting for others to vet or validate you, as opposed to walking in the room and validating yourself, right? Waiting for others to figure out what their energy is about you, as opposed to bringing your own energy into the room. And my work often can say to an artist, once people have me in the room, that maybe they have not done something right. And I'm always reassuring and disarming to say that if I'm in the room, that means people have invested in you. And I am not here to give you anything you don't already possess. My job is as an irritator and an agitator to truly help you tap into your personal star power, things that maybe you didn't even count as potential, things that may have just been lying dormant. And so that's what I see. There's a lot of what I see is that most people don't collect their wins, right? Big or small. We're waiting on other people to tell us that that was a success, that was a win. But if we are consistent about deeming what is a win to us, defining what is a win to us, then it helps us once we get in front of a large audience, because you're not walking in from a deficit or a deficiency. You're actually walking in saying, I'm already winning, right? What I'm here to do is offer you a part of that win, but it is not that you are or you are not based on what other people think. And so that is what I found most often, that people are not collecting their wins and they're waiting on other people to say, go, but you've got to go. You got to figure out what those metrics are for yourself. And sometimes they don't exist. Sometimes you're the only metric for the go. So let's go.
Yeah, I like what you're saying about embracing the small wins and the important things, because I feel like even these small things can just define how you are as a person and your own confidence.
Yes.
So yes, thank you. And my next question for you is, can you please share a moment in your life when you were struggling with your own self-acceptance, please?
There was a moment when I knew that every time I got on stage, right before, I had this feeling of sickness. And I just wanted to eradicate it from my body. And so I jumped into performing at this very popular television show at the time called Showtime at the Apollo. And the first time I went to perform, I won. It was great. I was like, oh, this is a good feeling. I want this again. And then they brought back all of the all-stars, people that had won week after week. And this time I was prepared. I had the winning feeling. I had the winning feeling. So I know what it felt like. I know how to engage with the audience. And there was another contestant who brought like a busload of people from Maryland. And it was clear that they wanted her to win. That's why they were there. But the way the process worked is that you went down the line and the audience had to either applaud you or boo you. So I was in the 7th position. She was in the 8th. And there were people that kind of got the obligatory claps as they went down the line. Oh, okay, cool. And then when they got to me, they booed me. And I knew why, but it wasn't a good feeling in that moment to just have this it took over my body. And I said, is this really what you want to do? And if this is the worst of it, can you overcome this? And if you can get to the truth of the matter, which is they're booing because they think you're her only competition, right? Which means that you take yourself out of the feeling of it, because feelings are not always evidence of truth, right? So if you can work yourself out of the feeling of this kind of colossal loss, then you can accept that this is your lot. Like, this is what you're supposed to do. So in real time, while I'm standing there and getting these boos, I had to accept myself and accept that I still had a gift, whether they booed or not.
That sounds so difficult and hard. Wow. But I really appreciate how you just kept on going and continuing to strive. I think that's the most important thing that there is.
Yeah.
And so lastly, you've worked with many artists from diverse backgrounds, and you've had your own journey in the entertainment industry.
Yes.
Many people from marginalized communities struggle with societal pressures that make self-acceptance even more difficult. What advice do you have for those trying to stay true to themselves while navigating these external challenges?
My advice for those in marginalized communities that are facing the day-to-day pressure, the day-to-day sadness of trying to not just exist in a world that sometimes doesn't see them, but to exist to yourself, because that's what counts first. I would ask you to take the moment to write down when you are most proud of yourself, right? This becomes the work that you have to constantly feed yourself, right? Because we wait for everything else. We're looking externally for things to feed us. But if you write down when you're most proud and you write down what brings you the most joy, then you can create these tiny moments of delightfulness in your life. That's really what it's about. Creating the tiny moments, taking the quick breaths of joy. It may not always be that you sustain that entire day, but you get through the day because you're able to kind of recall these moments and think about your daily wins. Think about, you know what, and it doesn't have to be big. It can be, I woke up this morning and I feel good about myself. I feel good about the deposits I've made in other people's lives. And sometimes it's just being a help and being a blessing to other people, right? And that can make you feel good. That can make you realize that you're not alone. And finding a community so that you don't have to go through those moments of whether it's depression, whether it's feeling inadequate, whether it is just a sadness of not feeling like you are your best. Find a partner, an accountability partner that says, hey, but you did this today. Or, hey, this is the goodness I see and what you bring. Hey, you light up every room you walk into. So I would say definitely find someone, because you don't have to do it alone. And days can be even more joyful if you are able to acknowledge, identify, and hone in on that when it's time.
I agree with that completely, and I think that kindness and just like small acts of doing something nice can really make a long way, but not only for the person that's receiving them, but for also the person that's, like doing the act of kindness. So yeah, I think that's so important.
Hi KJ, I'm Joni Burrell Williams, and it's so glad to have the opportunity to talk to you. Okay, so I have a few questions I want to ask.
Yes.
So firstly, for those facing discrimination based on race, gender identity, sexuality, disability, or other factors, self-acceptance is often intertwined with resilience. So how do you see the connection between the two, and what role has resilience played in your own journey?
The correlation between self-acceptance and resilience is one I have not thought about, but I live every day, right? And it's always been about how one recovers from the disappointing moments, right? Do you recover quick? Do you lament on them? How heavy do they become in your life? And so, oftentimes I think we consider resilience without considering or taking the moment to validate those feelings that you may be having in the moment, right? Because resilience is the result of taking that time to truly acknowledge and feel what you feel, because if you don't, then it's a false sense of resilience. You know what I mean? And the self-acceptance is the allowing of those feelings to exist and giving yourself grace to feel that. And even if you wish you didn't, then you can make some new decisions the next time. But the correlation for me is the allowance of them, the acknowledgement of them, the taking my time, and then the growing from them. I think that's the most important. Times that I've had to be resilient. I remember being on a really big song. It was called Big Daddy. It was by Heavy D. I'm dating myself. But the song was an album. It became a single hit. And I remember like driving down the West Side Highway in New York and hearing the song through the radio on Hot 97. I was like, I have won. This is it. And from that, they called and said, hey, can you be in the video? Which means I have to now fly to LA. I get all the way to LA, and unbeknownst to me, there had been kind of a change. And I think I was a casualty of that change. And so I come, but nobody had communicated it to me. So I get to the front of Universal Studios, the lot, okay? And I'm like, hey, I'm here to be in the video. I'm excited. I'm like, this is my break. It's going down. And they said, we have nothing for you to do here, after I had flown, right? And it was raining that day. If this were a cartoon, my head would have you'd see my head down and me walking away. And now I fly back. And in that moment, I could have easily said, this isn't for me. Like, I paid my own way to get there. You know, I came based on someone else's permission and approval of this, and then for them to say it's not happening. It was, I would say, not the lowest, but definitely a low point in my career. And then a few weeks later, they called and said, can you do the remix? Can you come and sing on the remix of this song? My first thought, once they called to say, can you sing on this remix, was absolutely not. My feelings are hurt, right? But nobody cares about your feelings. This is business. And so I obliged, and I said, you know, I'll be there. But I was very stern. I was like, I'm not talking to Heavy. I am going to focus on the work. We are not friends. And once I got there, like, his personality was just so welcoming. And I realized that if it were not me, they would surely call someone else. And oftentimes we're not recovering quick again, that I mentioned. And that's the resilience. How well are you recovering? How well did you take the time that you needed to actually get to the point of, it's time for me to move past this? And with that, I ended up having my voice played on another song, and it led to such a beautiful relationship with the artist and another opportunity for me to get closer to my dreams. It was another opportunity. It was another opportunity for me to get closer to my dreams. And that was when resilience worked for me, you know? And I think about, what if I had said, I'm not doing it? I may not be sitting here. I mean, I probably would be still sitting here because I've had other resilient moments, but I would not be as confident. And those growing moments are what give you kind of like the emboldened spirit, to push through. And now you know how to identify them. You know when this is like, this doesn't feel good, but where's the win here? That's resilience.
That was so great to hear, because I feel like often, like, me and others are always told, oh, this bad thing happened to you, just like move on from it, or cut those people off. But you didn't. You missed your opportunity, and then they called you back. You went for your opportunity, and you didn't let that stop you. And also that what you mentioned about like sitting in your feelings.
Yes.
I feel like we're often told to like move on, like get over it, but we never like really take the time to acknowledge how we feel in those bad moments. So it's great to hear that you do that. You do acknowledge how you feel. Like, you don't have to just move on.
Right.
It's amazing.
Right.
Okay. Next question I have for you.
Yes.
So, not everyone has access to supportive environments that allow them to be their authentic selves. If someone finds themselves in a space that doesn't embrace who they are, what advice would you give them to cope, thrive, and stay empowered?
First, if you can move to a different space where people do embrace who you are, you do not have to be a martyr, okay? If you are in a situation where this is just the space, and again, we can't control others, but we can control ourselves, I would say that you have to make sure that you make your moments in that space count, not for anybody else but you. You know what I'm saying? You have to show up in those moments for you, because then we get back to losing twice. The first loss, it seems like the first loss is not being embraced in that environment. The second loss is that you never embraced yourself. So walking in those rooms, identifying, what your purpose is in the rooms, identifying what, how you feel in those rooms, and changing the narrative. Oftentimes it's the conversations we're having with ourselves. How well are you now taking, affirmations and utilizing them? I spoke earlier about having power chants that are available on Pandora, Amazon, Spotify, and they are musical affirmations that allow you to empower yourself in real time, right? Sometimes you don't have the time to phone a friend. You may not have, the counselor that's available, but it is, how can you empower yourself until you can get with someone, else in the next few moments? And it is coming up with your own kind of power chant. What are those words? For me, when I am in a new environment, I have to say, you are a force. It is time to unleash. Don't ask permission. Your doubt must cease. Get in the room, change the room. So I want you to figure out what those words are for you. Because if we're just waiting on a welcoming environment to accept us as soon as we walk in, that means that we're in defense. If we're waiting on the acceptance, while it is great to have, you always want to be prepared that when you walk in the room, you have the tools to accept yourself in the space, not wait for someone else to accept you. Their acceptance is the bonus. Even if you're alone, I know it may feel awkward in the moment, but it becomes the repetition. Try your hand at walking into environments where they are welcoming and saying, what are the words I can say to myself that will empower me even more? So make a practice out of that.
I thought it was amazing how you talked about your purpose in the room, because I feel like I feel this all the time, and I know my friends, other people I know feel like this. If you're not accepted in that environment, just conform to it. But it's amazing that you're no, don't. If you're not accepted, it's okay. Have your own path.
Yeah.
Your purpose in the room.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you've been called the artist whisperer and the star polisher for a reason. Your work helps people unlock their potential.
Yes.
What steps can we take, both as individuals and as a society, to create more spaces where people feel accepted and valued no matter what their identity or background is?
It's called the Rose Effect. 8 steps to delivering the performance of your life. And this is about performance on any stage. My secret weapon is that I get you out of the blocks from a cold start, right? So let's say you are having feelings of doubt and fear. My job is to then help push you beyond your perceived capacity. Whatever you think about yourself, I want to take you higher. And again, I don't give you anything you don't already possess. I am just there as a, agitator, again, to help you animate and identify that potential. And some seeds of victory that have helped me along the way have been, don't outsource your win. That goes back to pre-approving yourself, knowing what that is, knowing what that feels like, sitting with that, sitting in that, stepping into yourself. And don't wait to access the energy in the room. When I go and I speak at different executive retreats and corporate conferences, I cannot wait to figure out what everybody else is feeling. I have lost a lot of time, right? So I can be aware of the tone and the spirit of the room, but I have to bring in my own point of view. Show up and be present. No one can show up for you, and no one can show up like you. So imagine walking in the room and taking up time and space, and it was like you were never there. So what showing up means to you is what you've got to figure out. Write down those things. When do I show up best? When do I like myself best? What are the things I want to work on? When do I feel the most challenged? What do I like about how so-and-so showed up? I am totally different. I bring something different, but there's something that I like about what that person does. How can I incorporate that? What is that level of embodiedness that they seem to walk in with? Identify and abide in your force. Your force is that thing about you that you were born with, that you were qualified for, that cannot be negotiated. Energy is mine. I have arsenals of it. Unmatchable energy. Empathy is my force. I can't do my job without empathy. I have to consider the moment that you had before you walked in the room. And then sometimes I may have to abandon my entire lesson plan based on what your feelings are in that present moment. And no matter what, make it count. Your point of view, your delivery, your space, and your gift. And enter every room knowing that you are the solution. What would that be if we walked in knowing that we had something that we could offer everybody else? If we knew that we are the yes for someone else, if we knew that this is bigger than us and we are here to make an impact in every room that we enter. And don't dismiss anyone, Understand how to stay open to new ideas helps you to not be, to actually have a level of empathy for others when they're not open to yours, right? Because you understand that is a process that they have not worked out yet. It allows you to kind of extend grace, but allows you to be exactly who you are. And those would be the things I would say to really help to harness a level of confidence in rooms that you feel like they're not easily penetrable. You have to bring an impenetrable force that is you, that is Journey, everything that you are. And that's the work you do before you get on the stage of life, the stage of your classroom, the stage of performance, the stage that you're about to enter next week for your play. So those are the things that you have to consider. I have already won. I am offering the audience a piece of my win and a piece of who I am.
One of the greatest takeaways I've just heard from what you said, from your book, it's to me, it feels like what you wrote about, what you were speaking about. Mm-hmm. It's you're not just all about you. You're considering, you're the main character in life. This is your stage. This is your performance.
Yes.
No matter what you're doing. Yes. But you're also considering the emotions of others. And considering how they feel and how that affects you. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing to hear your energy and confidence are so infectious. Okay, so what daily habits or practices have you found most effective in nurturing self-acceptance, confidence, and personal presence over time?
My daily routine has become journaling, writing out my thoughts, good or uncomfortable, but giving myself a moment, giving myself the grace to feel it, even if I don't want to stay in it, right? It's prayer. My mom sends me devotionals every morning. It really resets my thinking. It helps me to reset, renew. Maybe the narrative that my life took yesterday is not the one I want to have today. I shouldn't have said that yesterday. How can I be better based on my own internal metrics, not the better based on someone else? There's sometimes people can say things that, we will take personally. And then I have learned to say, now what part of that is, me just being in my feelings, and what part of that has some truth, and why did I react that way? So I do the work of deconstructing, what someone has said, deconstructing how I feel in real time. And so I think the work of writing has been so useful and helpful for me. Additionally, I like to walk. That's my time with God. That's my time to talk about how I'm feeling. That's my time for myself. I think we find ourselves extending to so many others before we first extend to ourselves, and that time, as opposed to waiting to the end of the day to say, like, okay, I'm going to sit with you at the top of the day, so that you actually have more to give if needed to others, and it doesn't deplete you. So it's not giving at your own expense. Fill your tank up. What does that mean? Fill your tank up with things that bring you joy. Fill your tank up with things that make you feel the most proud. Fill the tank up with people that make you, think, that people that have different perspectives, that people that, celebrate you. Those are the things that affirm you. Those are the things that help me from day to day move in what I know that I was purposed to do, the work that I was purposed to do.
The things that you mentioned, like going on walks, journaling, like those are things that like I've like done those and I'm like, wow, this really helped, and then I forget about doing it. But it really does help, and it's free. You can go on a walk whenever. You can go journal whenever. Get a piece of paper, get a pen. So that's something that I think that a lot of people, especially me, need to start doing. Because I feel like I always have like 50 things going on in my brain. I'm like, oh, this is happening. Then it's like a kind of rinse and repeat process. Yes. And what you said, I like never sit like in my thought. I never sit with me. Yes. So it's great to hear that like even someone like as amazing and confident as you, like you still have to do that. Like it's a process. Yes. Okay, before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share about your journey, your insights on self-acceptance, or advice for anyone struggling to embrace who they are?
Some final words would be, if I could go back and talk to young Key, right? So my name is Kiana. KJ Rose was my stage name. And the reason that came to be was, as a background singer for so many years, the minute I decided that I wanted to be in the foreground, sometimes people can only see you through one lens. And so they would always say, oh, Kiana, the background singer. And I was like, wow, that was such a tremendous time in my life. It led me, it encouraged me to come to a moment where I said, I am ready to go out on this solo career. But when I wanted to make that transition, it also felt like it kept me in this kind of secondary position. Mm-hmm. And so we oftentimes fight so much for people to see us differently or in a new lens. But the responsibility is for you to continue to keep being the thing that you desire to be, not forcing others to see it. And the minute I just sat in it, I stepped into it, I put points on the board, because it's one thing to say, oh, I'm a singer. And then you're like, well, when's the last time you sang? Or I'm a writer, but when was the last time you wrote? Right? And oftentimes when we were talking about journaling, it doesn't always have to be at 8:00 this happens, right? Life sometimes doesn't work like that. But maybe finding ways to jot down notes throughout the day, and then you put it all together, and that's a whole journal entry, right? So just writing out, just to get it off of you, to say, this is what I'm feeling at the moment. And then you come back to it later. That also has an impact. And so I have found that in those moments where I don't, believe that people are seeing me, I have stopped trying to force them to do just that. And I've decided to abide in exactly what I am. And those people who are supposed to get it and get you, they will. And those that have not, they just missed it. And that's okay too. And those are my thoughts.
We would like to thank our generous sponsors and partners, Michael J. LeBeau, Norman Aid Peer Counselors, KBEV, and of course, we'd like to thank our listeners. Stay safe and make today well lived.